Hello, friends. We are continuing now. We have our program number 8 in this Egoic Lotus webinar Commentaries. It's really a book on the Egoic Lotus that I decided to write in this way, speaking it instead of writing it, as I figured my thoughts would flow more spontaneously, more information could be given, even though some may prefer the written form, which allows them to study in a way that is more conventional. Here we are looking and viewing and doing our best to put together a great deal of information. We are studying the Egoic Lotus located on the higher subplanes of the mental plane. It is that structure created in our planet and on our fourth chain through the intervention of the solar angels and the power of the monad. I would say that the monad and the solar angels both are cooperators in the creating of the Egoic Lotus. This is a representation of the lotus as it would appear for a highly advanced human being on the verge of the fourth initiation, all petals completely unfolded, the synthesis petals as well completely unfolded, and the jewel in the lotus revealed. So this represents the acme of unfoldment of the Egoic Lotus. Of course, it doesn't really look that way, as the Tibetan tells us. This is simply a representation which is useful in helping us understand all the many energies that are combined within it. And I refer to the circles of petals, the 1, 2, and 3, which are the knowledge circle, or tier, T-I-E-R, 4, 5, and 6, which is the love tier or circle of petals, and 7, 8, and 9 apparently going in the other direction, at least from the way this lotus is drawn. These are the sacrifice petals. And then we have the synthesis petals, which begin to open at each of the first 3 initiations and bursting open just before the 4th initiation. I like to begin with a little bit of a review here, as these it's good for us to keep this image in mind, because we are talking about a lot of correlations. We're bringing in a lot of information and relating it to the historicity, we might say, of the unfoldment of the Egoic Lotus over a 21 or maybe 25 million year period. Most of the Egoic Lotuses that are completely unfolded at this time may not even come from our Earth chain humanity, but from our Moon chain humanity. But still there are those who began their work on the individualization on the Earth chain and have completely unfolded the Egoic Lotus and are in fact within the hierarchy itself. So there are different stages of rapidity, we might say, of its unfoldment. We have completed our, but we have laid out our work on the 10 soul groups of human beings, all the way from those who are the almost, as DK uses the word, throwbacks, atavistic, to an earlier time, hardly developed at all along the human line, very few of them, all the way to the Masters of the Wisdom. And we have studied as well our 8 stages of adaptation, all the way from primitive, unconscious, instinctual adaptation to the stage of adaptation, which is control of the self and of the environment, which is that of the very high initiate or of the Master of the Wisdom. So we are ready in a way. Are we ever ready? But we'll act as if we're ready to move on to another subject. Now, the subjects that I am discussing come from this particular table, and I call it, what do I call it? Well, it's a table which reveals to us background material, which should be considered when we think about what type of process is occurring in various areas when the different kinds of petals are unfolding. This is all an inner process. You know, for most of us, it's out of the range of our constant view. Maybe there are flashes now and then, or sensations now and then, or impressions now and then that something is happening in that structure on the higher mental plane, but it's mostly out of our view. But it's not out of the view of Master DK, who has presented, I think, with very great accuracy as he sees it, what's going on in that structure. And so all of these different subjects I have found over the years to be related to the unfoldment of the Egoic Lotus, and are areas of knowledge and understanding which should be brought in when we talk about the unfolding of the petals of the Egoic Lotus. So now, what I'll work on now is the energy transferences in the etheric body. And maybe I should not yet cross this out, you know, but let's just say that we will be doing this, whether it takes however many programs it may take. So, all right. So now we go on to this energy transferences within the etheric body, and this begins around page 520. So we're going to be, let's see. Okay, I don't have anything here that says that. Well, we're beginning program number 8, and I'll put that down. Beginning of BG, and beginning of Egoic Lotus webinar commentary program number program 8. I hope that's right, and we are in EP2, page 520, and going to 529. Now, why are we undertaking this? That we know that we can judge the degree of unfoldment of a human being by the unfoldment of the energy centers, the degree of vitalization, radiance, rotation, so forth, of the energy centers. And here, this is the subject. Of course, throughout DK's books, there's a vast amount of material on the energy centers, and I won't be able to go through all of that. That would be as if to be writing another book, which he does, in fact, ask us to do at some point, to gather all that material together and to use it not so publicly, but at least for people who can benefit from it and who will not hurt themselves from this information. So this is I think, an important section, and there are other sections dealing with the energy centers as well, because every time we look at a petal, we want to say, okay, what type of chakric unfoldment is correlating with this petal? I mean, you know, just in a very loose sense, the base of the spine up to a certain point correlates with the unfoldment of the first petal, but the sacral center is active as well, of course. It must be. And a lot of sacral activity is operating in the second petal, but the solar plexus is coming into the picture definitely, because it's the Atlantean petal. And the sacral center as the center for the mental elemental, is operating in the third petal, which is a mental sacrifice petal. Well, I should call it it's a physical sacrifice petal, but it has the process of mentality associated with it, not abstract mentality, and some of the throat center and so forth, and on we go until, you know, the heart center really begins to unfold in relation to the fifth petal. And so there are specific chakras which are maybe most associated with certain petals. And we might say, you know, finally the head centers are very much associated with the 9 petals, and that continues on into the area of synthesis, because the head indicates synthesis. So we will discuss these matters. All I've done just now is give the slightest indication of how we can associate the chakras with the petals, and when I go petal by petal in some sort of exhaustive and hopefully not exhausting discussion, then we will take all these things that we have been studying and correlate them with what we find to be the type of unfoldment going on within that particular petal, whether physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual. We will correlate all this information, and the purpose of it all, of all these correlations, is not just to stuff our heads with a lot of knowledge, but to get that picture of wholeness, this articulated wholeness, all things related together in a unity. That is our goal. Okay? So DK starts to say here, those of you who have read my other books and treatises will know how immense is the subject with which we are concerned. Well, this is the subject of the chakras, of course, and it is immense. Let me just see if I can, what color I can use here. I've been using this color. That's not maybe too bad. Maybe I can do that. So, well, I'm not sure that is the color I've been using. I think so. More or less. Yeah, well, it'll do. It'll do for the moment. Okay. So, how immense is our subject? The subject with which we are concerned, and how little is yet known and taught anent the centers and their force emanations and the activity of the vital or etheric body, which is the receiver and the distributor of the energies. Well, much is taught, but, well, maybe compared to what Master DK thinks, but how much of what is taught is accurate? That is the question, of course. How much is really accurate? Right. I'll make this a little... Yeah, okay. These energies determine and condition the circumstances and the physique of the human being. Well, that sounds like his physical nature, very much his physical nature, but also there are other types of chakras which condition the astral and the lower mental vehicle, and above, I would say, other vehicles as well, although the way that other types of chakras are related to the condition of the triadal vehicles is not yet given, at least is not given on the charts, and maybe it's hinted here and there, as when they say there are, 35 vortices of force make a master. Well, where are those 35 vortices going to go? They obviously have to go, some of them, in the triadal areas. So these energies determine and condition the circumstances and the physique of the human being and produce, in the last analysis, the phenomenal manifestation of man upon the physical plane, plus his inherent characteristics, and we should also think of the other centers, astral and lower mental, and how they also condition the personality. All this information I have earlier given, and it can be read and studied by those who are interested in doing so. A lot was given in the treatise on cosmic fire and some in white magic. It's just scattered throughout the books, and it is our labor and our education to gather what has been scattered and synthesize it, relate it and synthesize it. They can thus clarify their knowledge again anent the various centers. One thing I would like to point out, and we'll later elucidate, and this is the relation of the various centers to the rays, and this is as follows. Well, here's the big yes and no. Of course, it's a yes, but he does also give other relations. Other relations are also given. Of course, Ray 1, will of power, the head center, definitely, and Ray 2, love, wisdom, the heart center, definitely. Ray 3, active intelligence, the throat center. There is activity going on there in relation to the seventh ray at a certain point. Interesting that the Ajna center is placed after the throat center, even though it's in the head, and there must be a reason for it, and the reason is here that it's correlated here with the fourth ray and harmony through conflict. But that maybe doesn't come later until Mercury rules that center, And initially, and for average man, and even for the disciple it's said to be Venus, conveying the fifth ray. Well, maybe, I think even there's a place where the Ajna center is associated with the seventh ray. Actually, it's one of those centers where almost every ray can find its expression because it's involved much in the integration process. Ray 5, concrete knowledge, is the sacral center, although, the concrete knowledge is interesting because the mental elemental is said to have its place here in the sacral center, but also it is the place where the form is created, and Ray 7 is associated with the sacral center. And, other planets as well, Mars, the sixth ray is involved there in the Martian control of the sex center. That's when it's considered the sex center. Here, DK is considering it in relation to the home of the mental elemental. The physical elemental is located or has a close relation to the base of the spine, of course, and the emotional elemental of the solar plexus. Ray 6, devotion, that's pretty well standard. And Ray 7, ceremonial order. Well, it is the seventh chakra, and it resides at the base of the spine. It has everything to do with the etheric nature of man, and so it fits with the seventh ray. However, other times we have the first ray expressing through the base of the spine, through Pluto, and also Mars. Other times we have the fourth ray expressing through Mercury. So 1, 4, and 7 are all found expressing through the base of the spine, but I think we can understand the appropriateness of the seventh ray here. Just going through these things, because these are the kinds of things we will want to correlate as we begin to discover what it is that people are doing when they're passing through a particular petal phase. Much could be learned if one would gather all the data given on this subject into one book. Thus, earlier he warns us, just don't do that for the unready. Thus, relating what is known about the specific energy points to be found in the human frame. All that I can do here is to give a general idea of the subject, indicating certain lines of development and relationship, and then the 7 major centers, the 7 major glands. A lot of that is done in esoteric healing, and the localities and areas in the human body where these glands and centers are to be found. I would also beg you to realize 5 facts. Well, okay, is this the best and final reference for us to be searching through when we think about the centers in relation to the Egoic Lotus? Well, there are also others, but let's just say that when we enter the discussion of any tier of petals, and especially any petal particularly, we want to know what chakras are under particular stimulation when that petal is being organized, stimulated, organized, gradually opened, unfolded until it's finally opened. We want to know what are the chakras involved. Of course, we always have all the chakras, right? They're always operating, but the emphasis may not be upon them at a particular moment, a particular phase. It all correlates with the larger processes of rounds, we might say. So the life wave is making its rounds, and I also think within the human frame there is a kind of rounding process that occurs, and chakras may be unfolded to a certain extent, and then others unfolded to a certain extent, and then we come around again and take still another unfoldment. It's pretty clear that the lower centers, certainly the base of the spine, is not completely unfolded until a much later date. So there's got to be some preliminary unfoldment that is operative there, and then later, in a kind of rounding process, coming back again, directing attention again to that center, yet further unfoldments as the Kundalini power is ready to go through its phases of rising. Okay. So I'd also beg you to realize 5 points: that the undeveloped man men are energized and galvanized into outer activity through the medium of 3 centers below the diaphragm, and that's pretty clear. That's the, what do we call, maybe the strictly personal life. And even before, even before personality integration. There is so much related to the personality in the solar plexus itself. The solar plexus, the throat center, the absence center, these are all related to the personality elemental at different stages of unfoldment. So these are stages through which we should have long passed long ago, and let's just say that the real emphasis there is in the hall of ignorance, which is the outer 3 petals. Now, all of us who are studying the Bailey material and spirituality have passed through that phase where the outer tier of petals has unfolded, and we are interested now in what's called the great monastic initiations, beginning with the birth of the Christ and so forth. So we're on a different level, a different tier, as it were, but still we have plenty of difficulties to deal with as aspirants and even as disciples with the over understimulation of the centers below the diaphragm. So even though we may be working primarily, even in the sacrifice petals, there may be issues to be taken care of in the lower petals and in relation to the lower centers and the planets that control them. The average man is beginning to function primarily through the solar plexus center. Now, you know, if we were going to make a correlation, we'd say, well, who is the average man? Those nice, good people, the so-called sheep of the human family, those that are found in human group number 5, soul group, human group number 5. They can still be regimented. They still are primarily emotional. Maybe we cannot say that the modern man, average man, is the modern Atlantean. That's soul group number 4. No, maybe soul group number 5 is closer to the truth. So the average man is beginning to function primarily through the solar plexus center and to use it as a transferring center of force for energies which must be carried from below the diaphragm to above the diaphragm, because, this average man is moving towards individuality, toward being an integrated personality. So naturally, see, INDT, do you think? Yes, individuality, towards being an integrated personality. So there is movement here. This is a stage of adaptation, which is, let us see, I suppose it is the 3rd stage of adaptation, where there's still quite a bit of selfishness and social wariness or awareness for one's own benefit, and stage number 4. And by the time we get to stage number 5, we are struggling. Let's see if I have this. I should have this recent. So Egoic Lotus webinar book and the stages of adaptation. And let's see, we'll run down here because this is not the one that's so filled in with so many references. It's a little easier. So the average good man. Okay, so that's the average man, the average really good man. Well, maybe stage of adaptation number 5 is really a little bit ahead of the average man, who's not necessarily really good, because really attempting to live according to the higher of the pairs of opposites. Perhaps not. All right, so let's see, where are we? Okay, energy transferences. Anyway, the average man, you see, it's nice to be able to correlate that with the groups. But let's just say that the Atlantean man and even the nice, good person is, but not necessarily really good. In other words, it has to do with appearances and what the real desire nature may be. the nice, good people are in group number 5, and they are largely emotional, even though at times they are forced to think, right? Forced to think and not simply react. That the world aspirants, obviously he's jumping quite a bit here. He's not taking the same kind of graded steps that we took when discussing the 8 stages of adaptation and the 10 stages of the human and soul groups. That the world aspirants are slowly being energized and controlled by the forces which are being transferred from the centers below the diaphragm to the throat center, and from the soul to the throat center. So this leads to creative activity of some kind. And so the first thing to happen with respect to the individual is creative activity through the throat center. Now later will come the power of true love, and then the power of true will. Later, true love and true will. My cursor was jumping all over the place, and I hope it works. I don't want to speak too soon. I got a simple little program which turned off the mouse pad when typing, and it seems to, so far, prevent that jumping cursor, which was so annoying. You never know where you're typing, So world aspirants are slowly being energized and controlled by the forces which are being transferred into the throat center. They are creative people. They are striving for something higher. They are living not necessarily fully in the heart center, but they are living in the sacral center is transferring to the throat. And well, what is an aspirant? An aspirant can even be one who has taken the first initiation. The energies transferred from the sacral center to the throat has pretty well occurred by that time, or is at least rapidly in occurrence. I mean, a word like aspirant, it's a difficult word. I mean, it goes all the way from work in the latter part of the 5th petal toward probationary discipleship, and gradually towards the 1st degree, where we don't necessarily have to abandon that word. As Master DK says, all true aspirants have taken the first initiation. So, okay, so we're basically talking about the centers below the diaphragm, the sort of clearinghouse of the solar plexus, and the movement towards the throat center, which is, let's just say, the integrating personality is going to use that throat center, and it's one of the first things that a personality gradually coming to itself exercises, the throat center. That the world disciples, now, what does he mean here? I think he means aspirants in the world and disciples in the world. Because if he literally meant world disciple in the more technical sense, he would be talking about the initiate of the 3rd degree, and I don't think yet that he is talking about the initiate of the 3rd degree. The world disciples, the disciples in the world, are beginning to be governed and controlled by the throat and heart centers, which means that the group response and the tendency to consider one's identity as part of the group and the general energy of love is growing, and are also beginning to transfer the forces which have been raised to the heart and throat to the ajna between the eyebrows in the middle of the forehead. This is when this is done, the man is then an integrated personality, and the soul also stimulates the ajna center. It's coming from 2 directions. This is so interesting. The completely, well, is it complete, or we might as well consider it that, the completely integrated soul-infused personality occurs at the 3rd initiation. At the 3rd initiation. Now that's where the ajna center gets involved. The ajna center and the 5th ray are involved in this initiation. So we can understand why he says that. The ajna has many functions. It's involved in selfish personality integration, as well as the completely integrated personality. So we don't know exactly what he's talking about here. I think he is maybe also mentioning the idea that there is the earlier stages of integration may be involved here as well. But if one is really a world disciple, it wouldn't quite fit, because the world disciple has to be more than selfishly integrated. So I think we're in the process of soul infusion. Let's just say the majority of soul infusion occurs by the third initiation, with some continuation up to the fourth degree. Okay. So aspirants, disciples of the world, and here we know that he doesn't mean world disciples, because he talks about the more advanced disciples and world initiates and initiates of the world. So maybe now he's also talking about those initiates of the second degree, and which are probationary initiates, and then world initiates. That the more advanced disciples and world initiates are also energized from two sources, by means of the energies raised up and lifted into the head from all centers of the body. Okay, so the higher the stage of initiation, the more we converge upon the head, which really contains all replicas or master controls for all the centers, and by those which pour into the human frame from the soul via the highest center at the top of the head. In each case, he represents a two-way street. We see that, right? A two-way street is described upwards towards the higher centers from the lower centers, and downwards from the soul into the various centers, and especially into the higher centers, the centers above the diaphragm. In the early days, of course, when the soul energy comes down, it's immediately shunted into the lower centers. But at a certain point, it no longer is directed or passes rapidly to the lower centers. It stays within the higher centers above the diaphragm, and those same higher centers are sustained by the upward rising energy of the lower centers. So more advanced disciples here and world initiates are energized from the head, and the way the head is fed by all the other centers. And there are many centers in the head, and he does mention finally the highest head center. What's it called? Brahmarandra? Sahasrara? I'm trying to think of the Indian names. Well, we just have to know it's the highest head centers. The whole process, as you can see, is one of development, use, and transference, as is the case in all evolutionary development. Something has to be unfolded, it has to be used, and then transferred. So unfolded, used, and transferred, and then as it's transferred, it will lead to the unfoldment, use, and further transference. And this will lead to unfoldment, use, and further transference, and on and on and on, because that's the way it goes. Each sphere, ever greater sphere, is actually a chakra. So in a certain sense, all of humanity is a chakra, and so is all of hierarchy, and so is all of Shambhala. And our various globes are chakras, and our planetary chains are chakras, and our planetary scheme is a chakra, and so is our solar system, and so are the solar systems within a cosmic logos, and so are the constellations within a supercosmic logos, and on, until we get galaxies being chakras too, don't we? Wow, what kind of being is that? Well, you say, oh, that's some fantastic being. Indeed it is, but remember that we are an emanation of, we are an emanation, and so is that huge galactic being of the same source. And so if one can think intuitively and abstractly about this, one begins to realize that we are that life of that galaxy, and we are the life of the whole. Not in any practical sense, of course, but in existential, ontological sense, that's what we are. If you peel away every type of veil, we are the very essence, and there's only one essence. So there are two major transferring centers in the body. Well, okay, and relating this a little bit to the Egoic Lotus, I think we could say, that going back here just a little bit, that the average man is functioning in the solar plexus, and he's still working very much in the hall of ignorance. Okay, he hasn't really unfolded all of the three knowledge petals, not yet, and is not really, the average man, working in the hall of learning. Maybe the higher average are. World aspirants, well, the world aspirants definitely are working in the hall of learning and in the love petals, and they are especially, let us say, maybe in the fourth petal. They are still, in a way, personalities, and there's a lot of the third ray occurring in this third petal. The third ray sign Cancer is found there. The moon is found there. The moon has so much relation to the third ray. It's kind of a petal in which one integrates the personality, but does not yet magnificently express it in creativity the way one does in the fifth petal. But aspirants are involved in working at first. Well, let's just see here. If you're really an aspirant, you have to be in the fifth petal. So the integration of the personality, which prepares for the stage of aspiration, will occur at first in the fourth petal, and then one can become the true expressive aspirant, putting one's creativity available for higher causes. So this will occur in the fourth and fifth petal, and with some refinement and correction occurring in the sixth petal. Okay, just checking here. This Tibet group is due to call me any time, So there they are in Tibet, seeing all the wonders of Tibet. And here I am doing the Egoic Lotus. Well, it's better than gasping for air at 15,000 feet, I suppose. Now, with the world disciples, not only the throat and the heart, so they are working definitely in the love tier, but have also begun working in the sacrifice tier, because to be a disciple means to begin relinquishing so much that is pertaining to the normal humanity, even to all the kinds of social relations which are built up in the love petals, in the love tier. So when the energies are being raised to the heart, so the fifth petal is definitely involved, to the throat, therefore the sixth petal is involved, and so is the seventh petal, where we have a great accumulation of knowledge which is used for other people. World disciples do that. And eventually to the ajna center between the eyebrows. The ajna center is a great directing center. It's a great knowledge center. It also can be associated with the second ray as the center between the highest head center and the alta major center. So it operates in terms of the second ray as well. So the world disciples are definitely involved in the love tier, and they are involved as well in the sacrifice tier. And when you are becoming a truly integrated personality at the third degree, if that's how far we're going to go here, then all of the petals will be open. All 9 of them will be open, and the ajna center in a higher way will be stimulated and will represent an integration between soul and personality, such as in Esoteric Psychology 2, the integration formulas discuss. So do read those integration formulas, and according to your ray, try to determine where you are in this integration process whereby the energy system of the soul and the energy system of the personality are brought into productive relation with each other. And then finally, the more advanced disciples and world initiates, well, they're definitely working in the sacrifice petals. And you know, as it goes on to the world initiates, it depends on how high an initiate. There may be no causal body at all. But let's just say the synthesis petals are operative here. If we're going from the third degree towards the fourth degree, one is really drawing upon those synthesis petals. And that's why so much knowledge can be accumulated during the third and between the third and the fourth initiation. He does really discuss this. And a wider love and a wider and greater type of will is understood for the initiates of the world. From the third degree and then to the fourth degree, we're not so much interested in what happens beyond the fourth degree in this context, because the Egoic Lotus has gone supernova and has been incinerated or destroyed in one of 7 ways and is no longer operative. It's not there. And the debris is being gradually absorbed for a great clarification, which we call the 5th degree of revelation. Okay, so that, you know, just a little review there. The process is one of development, use, and transference. Yes. And the transferring centers in the etheric body, the solar plexus, and the throat. So these are synthesizing centers. We can say that the solar plexus is the synthesizing center for all the energies below the diaphragm, and the throat center is the synthesizing center in some mysterious way for the centers of the torso. That would include the heart. I mean, have you ever wondered why it is that the heart center seems to be in a way greater than the throat center, but the throat center is situated in a higher place than the heart and has 16 potencies, whereas the heart only has 12. And then look at the ajna center with its 96 potencies, and maybe add 2 for the major petals, the 98. So the more petals, the more potencies are there, and maybe some of the higher functions are available, higher functions than those that have lesser or fewer petals and potencies. So there are 2 major transferring centers, the solar plexus and the throat, and one master center through which the energy of the soul must pour when the right time comes, pouring consciously and with full awareness of the disciple, and that is, of course, the head center, right? So, of course, head center. That center is the head center, called in Eastern philosophy the 1,000-petal lotus. Maybe it's not exactly 1,000, maybe it's more like 960 plus 12, but, you know, as Master DK said to Roberto Assagioli, who asked some interesting questions about the head center, he said, this is very esoteric and not much can be revealed about all of this. But I think if you go into some of the Hindu books and you read between the lines and read carefully, correlating with what we know here, maybe more can be learned. Also, in comparison with the Sanskrit alphabet and the different letters associated with the different petal areas, I think we can learn more. In other words, maybe it's all presented in a way, but not explicitly. So maybe if we study very carefully, more will come to light. The 1,000-petal lotus. The problem of average man is therefore concerned with the solar plexus. You know, the nice, good person who is primarily emotional, learning to think on occasion, having unfolded a lot of the second petal, learning how to work in the third petal and becoming, be able to be more purely mental there. That's where the average man is found. How many modern Atlanteans are there compared with the bulk of humanity? Well, we don't know. We don't know. But, you know, those are the 2 largest groups, the modern Atlanteans, and of the fourth soul group, or human group, and the nice, good people, easily regimented, the so-called sheep of the human family. Maybe that is the largest of all the groups. The problem of the disciple, the advanced aspirant, and it really, in a way, the disciple is an advanced aspirant. I mean, you're pretty well a disciple by the time he's taken the first degree, and he says all true aspirants have taken the first degree. He does say also that his job is to train aspirants for initiation, and he considers the first two initiations and even the third as the legitimate objective of training. So certainly by that time one is a disciple. The problem of the disciple and the advanced aspirant and the initiate of the lower degrees, maybe these are all more or less equivalent, so probationary initiates, is connected with the creative center, the throat center. That is interesting. Okay. Well, let's just pause there for just a moment. I think it's really interesting that even the initiate of lower degrees, the probationary initiate, still has to deal with the throat center, with right creativity. So even the initiate of the first degree and second degree must deal with right creativity. The full coming in of the heart center, well, you would expect it at some point along the line of the development of the second degree, and surely by the time of the transfiguration there would be a very strong heart center development as the basis. I mean, there is a transformation of the astral body that occurs as it moves from selfishness to unselfishness at the second degree, moving away from Mars perhaps and more towards what Venus can represent, more towards love, wisdom. But it is interesting that the disciple, the advanced aspirant, the initiate of lower degrees, his problem is connected with the throat center, the right use of speech, right action, right formulation of thought, right creativity. Anyway, another angle on the subject offered by Master DK. So many different angles are offered, and our task is to find the way to bring them together into a holistic point of view. I would remind students here that the following three points related to the transference of energy, and these must be borne in mind. Number one, that there is a transference to be made from all the lower centers to higher ones, and that this is usually done in two stages. You know, and when we look at the different types of development of the petals, we will see what type of transference is being involved. Okay, the transference carried on within the personality is paralleled by the transference of spiritual energy from a reservoir of force we call the soul to the man on the physical plane. This is so important. There's a transference from below, going higher, and a transference from above, going lower. Now, I wonder if I have, well, yes, no, I don't have it there, but I will have it in just a moment. This is, okay, right. Here it is, and here it is. So when we look at this map, we see that in fact there are lines being drawn from the higher sources. Let's see, I wonder how big I can make this. And they go to the different petals of the Egoic Lotus from the spiritual triad, but as well, we might say that from these petals, there is also a type of transference occurring toward the mental centers and onward towards the astral centers and finally towards the etheric centers. So the transference is from above as well as from below, and that we must remember. This becomes possible as the man makes the needed transference within himself. Okay, in other words, when we elevate our own nature, the soul transference becomes possible. These transferences can take place in the course of the evolutionary development process, or they can be hastened. through the force training given to disciples of all degrees as they prepare for initiation. And, the ultimate fact involving this forcing is the application of the rod of initiation in relation to the 3 sacrifice petals. I mean, it's interesting that the Christ, who is so immensely sacrificed for humanity and the planet, and the great Lord, who's called the Great Sacrifice, apply the rod of initiation when the man is earnestly working within the sacrifice petals and when sacrifice is becoming his way. I guess, whoop, that's horrible. Let's just see. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry if you've had to look at that horrible picture for any length of time. But now it's moving again. Let's just say that there is no initiation without sacrifice. Something of the elemental nature has to be given up to make room for something greater to move in. So I think, one really needs to get this clearly. Initiation is not something you attain by just wanting it as a personality. There is no initiation without sacrifice of the aspects of the personality and eventually of the personality itself. And that is something we should bear in mind on this path of occult training. I think the problem with those who take the left-hand path is they want attainment without sacrifice. This is a huge problem. On the left-hand path, there is the quest for attainment without sacrifice, and that is not for us a legitimate way. So this is done in 2 stages: the transference carried on within the personality, and the transference from the reservoir of force called the soul. And we contribute to that reservoir of force by bringing in all of our lower energies which have been transmuted and elevated. But that reservoir of force is not only from us, it's from the solar angel and from the spiritual triad, the higher aspects of our own nature. So that reservoir is of dual or triple construction, really. All right. So that within this major field of activity, the following transferences will have to be made. So there's a transference within the personality. What are the specifics of that transference within the personality? A, the energy is carried, energy of the center at the base of the spine, interestingly, the organ of the personal will, and so we see how that might apply in the early first petal days when man is such a brute, so to speak, must be raised and carried up the spinal column to the head center via the ajna center. And notice that, it is via the ajna center. As a matter of fact, a lot of that lifting process, whereby that lower energy is brought upward, is controlled from the ajna center. And so it either comes to the ajna center or is controlled from it before it reaches the highest head center. The energy of the sacral center governing the sexual life and the organs of physical creation must be raised to the throat center, which become the organ of creative activity of a non-physical nature. There are great plans made. They can be physicalized. Of course, they can be rendered into form, but it's a subtler form of creativity than strictly the creation of form per se. There are all kinds of creative acts that are possible, and when a person is creating in the arts and in the mind, this is a non-physical type of creation. The energy of the solar plexus, the organ of self-conscious personal desire. Okay, he does really describe these so well. Self-conscious personal desire. I believe I exist. I, who believe that I exist, want this or that. Must be raised to the heart and there transmuted into group service. So we see that when that energy is raised to the heart, certainly we're going to have that first initiation. We're going to have the initiation which is called response to group vibration. The Egoic Lotus will rise, as it is shown here, to the second subplane of the higher mental plane. It could also be drawn, I suppose, on the third or lowest subplane of the higher mental plane, even though there is a question about the exact location of the central fire of the jewel and the lotus, which is said not to be located on any one of those planes, but to be located, as it were, between the very highest or atomic subplane and the lowest plane of the Buddhic plane. So that is interesting in terms of egoic, the structure of the egoic lotus. That all these centers are developed and brought into activity in 3 stages, and thus progressively condition the outer man, the aspects of the outer man's life. Centers always with the 3. The Trinity is always found. There is a period wherein the centers are active only in a sluggish and semi-dormant manner, and the higher centers are active only in that way for the lower type of man, although the lower centers are beginning to be active. The forces of which they are formed and which they express move slowly and with a heavy, inert rhythm. The frequency is not high, so it tells us something about rapidity of frequency related to development. The light which can be seen wherever there is a center is dim, and the point of electric potency at the center of every center, apparently, the heart of or lotus within the chakra, the hub of the wheel, as it is esoterically termed in the Oriental teaching, is relatively quiescent. So, excuse me, we have to think of the central fire, not only for the jewel in the lotus, the causal body's jewel, but that jewel or central fire or hub of the wheel or heart of the lotus for every one of the chakras. There is just enough energy pouring into the center to produce the preservation of life. So we see how well this is calibrated by the life-sustaining forces of the solar angel or even the monad. The higher powers determine that the man must stay in incarnation. So enough has to come through the centers to hold him in incarnation. There is just enough energy pouring into the center to produce the preservation of life, the smooth functioning of the instinctual nature, plus a tendency to react in a fluctuating and unintelligent manner to stimuli coming from the astral plane via the individual astral body. So this is in the early days, and man is not really even yet emotional. Man is not yet emotional. He's very, as it were, Lemurian. He is physical, etheric in his nature. So some of the etheric chakras will begin to carry, in a spasmodic or fluctuating manner, energy from the astral plane. And this is, these are the 3 stages of development. Now, obviously, we're talking about activity that's going on very much within the first petal, especially within the first petal, which tells us something about Lemurian man. It's the knowledge petal. Yeah, let's see. By the time we reach the second petal, there's definitely, it's an Atlantean petal in a way of describing it, and definite emotional energy is coming through, and this is a period when there's lots of emotionality, I would say. Okay. Then a period wherein there takes place a definite heightening and intensifying of force. The light of the centers is brighter, and the solar plexus center in particular becomes very active. So this for the modern Atlanteans of the 4th group of souls, and also for the average good person, the bulk of our humanity, the solar plexus is bright. And he says almost excessively active. The emotions are almost excessively active. Let's see, how did he describe that? I think I'm going to leave this one out. And maybe Egoic Lotus table. Well, I don't know if I should go on a hunt for that, but he does talk about in the 5th group, describing that fifth group, he does talk about almost the excessive intensity of emotion, even for the average, for the average good person. Let's see. Maybe I just should find it. 5 groups of souls. And if we go down here to the 5th group, we will say, and I hope I'm correct, yes, intense emotional activity. That's the one I was looking for. So we can make a correlation there. And now, stages of adaptivity, no. And energy transferences. There we are. Okay. So the solar plexus is becoming brighter, and this has a lot to do with the work of the second petal and even into the third petal, but the second petal is primarily the emotional petal. The petals for the emotional plane really have a lot more to do with using emotion in a constructive social manner. And sometimes in response to the higher of the pairs of opposites, that higher power which begins to be detected. So the light of the centers is brighter, and the solar plexus center in particular becomes very active. As yet, all the real life of the man is focused below the diaphragm. The majority of the life focus is below the diaphragm, and because that's so, we are definitely working in the Hall of Ignorance, operating through the 3 lower petals. The centers above the diaphragm are dim and dull, still, and relatively inactive. The point at the center is, however, more electrical and dynamic than in phase number 1. Just imagine what it would be like to be able to study all of this directly, to look into the human being and see these things directly in an accurate manner that can be historically verified. All of this is coming for us. The psychic powers are being developed. Their accuracy is in question, but as we clear our natures, there will be the proper kind of development. At this stage, the man is the average intelligent citizen. So this is definitely soul group number 5, and he is also in stage of adaptation number 4, predominantly controlled by his lower nature and his emotional reactions, with what mind he has actively employed in bringing satisfaction to his needs. So we understand that this is not mind for its own sake. The joy of knowing, the penetration into the light because one loves the light. Not this. It's not this. Okay. His centers are the receivers primarily of physical and astral forces, but occasionally responding to mental impact. So this is, what I would call the two and a half petals. They can be called lotuses of passion and desire. They are not the Brahmic lotuses or lotuses of Brahman, which are quite Lemurian in their nature, with some Atlantean development for the lotuses of Brahman, but they are the lotuses of passion and desire which relate to the average man today. And we are going to study these from a treatise on cosmic fire. I've already written, quite a bit of commentary on them, but I think they need to be verbally studied in our work that we're doing together here, because they relate very much to these stages of chakra unfoldment, and they relate to the 8 groups and the 10 groups. And then a period wherein first transference is made. So let's just say we have dullness at first, and greater awakening, then transference. The period when the first transference is being made, this can last a long time and cover several lives. The centers below the diaphragm are fully awakened. Their activity is great. Their light is vivid. Their interrelation is real. So, we might say that this corresponds with the unfoldment of the whole outer tier of petals, the knowledge tier. Perhaps some of that knowledge tier work is related to the throat center when we consider the third, or the sacrifice petal. It is a mental petal. So, well, let's say quite fully awakened, this outer tier. Their activity is great, their light is vivid, their interrelation is real, and that when the interrelation is consummated, there will be the unfolding of the ignorance of the petals in the Hall of Ignorance, the three knowledge petals. So much so that a complete magnetic field has been set up involving the whole area below the diaphragm. So that triangle between those three centers is really operating vitally and becoming potent enough to extend its influence above the diaphragm. This is very interesting. So the lower forces, when potent enough, begin to reach above the diaphragm. In other words, when development has occurred, there is naturally going to be the opportunity for continued development. It's all done in phases, it's all gradual, and the forces coming from above are not going to begin drawing upon the lower forces until those lower forces are ready to be drawn, which means they have to go through their developmental cycle. The solar plexus becomes the dominant organ in the place of the sacral center, which has so long determined the life of the animal nature. So, there's a lot of focus here in a fully developed second petal, I would say. It becomes the recipient of energy streams from below, which it absorbs, and starts on its task of deflecting them and transferring them to the higher centers. And so even, there's the question, we talk about the transfer of the sacral center to the throat, but it looks like it has to go through the clearinghouse of the solar plexus before transferred to the throat, transferred higher centers. So looks as if the solar plexus is involved in all transferences from below, even its own, when it goes to the heart. The man is now the highly intelligent citizen and aspirant. We've moved in this paragraph. He is conscious of the dualism of his nature, which means he's working in the love petals, because it is in the love petals that his sense of dualism is impressed upon his consciousness. He is conscious of the dualism of his nature, of the, we say of the higher power and his more ordinary personal nature, of that which is below and that which is above, as it has been called, and is ready to tread the probationary path. And this we have in the latter fifth, let's see if I have this correct. Okay, fifth PTL. No, I guess I don't have that. Okay, so let's just do it this way. Fifth petal. And some of the sixth petal. The man is now the highly intelligent citizen. So it reminds us very much of the sixth group of souls, where the person is becoming the real thinker. And just beyond that, in the seventh group, the true aspirant and those on the probationary path will be appearing. So he is conscious of the dualism of his nature, of that which is below, that which is above, as it has been called, and is ready to tread the probationary path. Now, the probationary path is very much connected with petal number 6, with work in petal number 6. The full unfoldment of petal number 6 gives us the second initiation, but I'm talking about the organization of petal number 6 and work within petal number 6. Toward the end, when working within petal number 5, we have people ready to step onto the path of aspiration, where they're willing to sacrifice their personality nature, so fully developed in petal number 5, willing to sacrifice that for some higher power, some higher objective. All right, and the period wherein transference is continued. The sacral forces are carried to the throat, and the solar plexus are carried to the heart. So basically what we have is the general description of the first initiation and the second initiation. The latter transference is as yet of so small a measure that the effect of the transference is almost negligible. Well, okay, we're not really then at the second degree yet. The period is a long and difficult one. Today most people are going through periods C and D, which are preparing for the expression of the mystical life. So here, this looks a bit like the mystical life. Let us see here in the Egoic Lotus. Oh, that's not it. The 5 groups. Okay. And maybe I can make this a little, yeah, okay. So we don't have the mystics yet, but on the probationary path, the group number 7 of the human groups, soul groups, human groups, are the probationers, and they are the mystics. So in our discussion here, it is in these energy transferences, it's C and D that are preparing for the real mystical life. C and D, sacral centers to the throat and so forth, C and D prepare for the mystical life, and the mystical life is found with the probationers in human group number 7. Shall I call it human group? Shall I call it soul group? Sometimes DK calls it soul group, and one way of discussing it is as the human group. So, but in this case, but in stage D, the second transference is not yet much active. The latter transference is as yet of so small a measure that the effect of the transference is almost negligible, and this is a difficult period. So people going through stages C and D, from the solar plexus to the heart, well, no, it's from the sacral center to the throat. Now that's really completed at the first degree, but they are becoming more creative as members of the 6th soul group of thinkers. Now when we start to transfer sacral to the throat, we do get that kind of creativity coming in, and then when we become the mystic, finally, we're on the probationary path. And what was happening here at group number C? Let's see. Well, there are first transferences are being made. Okay. And the solar plexus becomes the dominant organ, as it must before there is any real complete transference to the higher centers. So transferring them to the higher centers, the man is the highly intelligent citizen and aspirant. So this is, we might call it petal 5, and a human group sort of 6, we might say. He is conscious of the dualism of his nature. Well, that begins in petal 4 and also in petal 5. And then, a period wherein the heart and throat centers are brought into activity. All right. Both of them together. Not just the throat center, which was to be found early in the game when the man is coming into his personality nature. The man is creatively intelligent along some line or other and is slowly becoming group conscious. So again, what we have here is human group number 6. Human group number 6, which are of the creative thinkers. As yet, however, his reactions are still selfishly motivated, though at the same time he is subject to cycles of vision and periods of spiritual effort. So we can say that this is petal 5 and petal 6, where a man tries to be altruistic in petal 6, but still has certain selfish tendencies to defend. The mystical life is definitely attracting him. He is becoming the mystic. You see how in each one of these paragraphs it covers actually a span of time. Some of the sentences maybe indicate a certain stage, and then later sentences in the same paragraph may indicate a still more highly developed stage. So the heart and the throat centers are brought into activity. He's working in petal number 5. He's working in petal number 6. He is becoming a member of human group number 7. He's already a member of human group number 6. He's not yet fully the disciple in human group number 8. And I believe that is correct. One has to rely upon one's memory to a certain extent. The probationary path, the mystics are here, but here is truly human group number 8, the path of discipleship. Of course, it would require a well-developed throat center and a well-developed heart center. And ultimately, the throat center is going to be stimulated at the second degree in a new way, making the person having spiritual intelligence and quite illumined mind. And the heart center will be stimulated at the first degree, the birth of the Christ in the heart. So we see that the true disciple has the throat and the heart center, and can be considered in relation to the group we're just discussing. The heart and throat center are brought into activity. When they are brought into great activity together, then you have first degree initiate and second degree initiate. So he's creatively intelligent along some line. I mean, so much depends upon the ray on which we are developing. These different phases come at different times according to the ray. We know it's easier for some people to develop certain characteristics at an earlier time, and for others it's more difficult, and they develop other characteristics at an earlier time. All of this ultimately relates to the monadic ray. You know, how does it go? Maybe will is the hardest for all to develop, but let's say that, well, for the love type, of course, the characteristics connected with love are the easiest to develop, even though the chakras associated with knowledge unfold first. In every triangle, there is a knowledge, love, and will representation. For those who are on the line of will, it's love that is most difficult to unfold. And for those who are on the line of strictly knowledge, I believe, ultimately, it is will that is most difficult strictly to unfold. So when we're only looking at generalities here. We're looking at how people unfold according to their ray, and we're looking at the general conditions of unfoldment. The man is creatively intelligent along some line or other, so that's human group number 6. His reactions are still selfishly motivated. He's not yet really at the selfless stage of adaptation. And I think when we look at the stages of adaptation, let's just see when this selfless stage comes in. It comes in, I think, pretty much at number 7, the 7th stage of adaptation. When we're looking here at group number 6, 6th stage of adaptation, he calls them the aspirants of the world. So we have to keep all these numbers straight and see how they can all blend together to make a completed picture. Okay. Now, the next one is, well, we have 2 more. A second period of transference ensues, and the ajna center, which governs the integrated personality, becomes active and dominant. We have to remember that when DK refers to the integrated personality, he oftentimes is not speaking of the selfishly integrated personality, but of the personality which has a good degree of soul energy in it as well, and which is finally integrated at the 3rd degree, and in a way even more so at the 4th. So a second period of transference which goes to the ajna center. Now when we start talking about the ajna center, we're in the head, and things are beginning to focus within the sacrifice petals. Even with the heart, there is focus within the sacrifice petals. I sometimes think that the seventh petal, the knowledge petal of the sacrifice tier, is the one that has a lot to do with the ajna center. The life of feeling and of mystical effort is, at this time, liable to die down temporarily in its expressed fervor and ardent disciplines. You know, the kind of sixth petal work. We can call this the petal 6 work, which is correlated with Virgo, the sixth sign. Okay, so you're disciplining yourself. You're on the probationary path. You're trying to move toward the higher power which you sense, and you're doing whatever you can. But that's liable to die down. And personality integration, personality ambitions, personality aims, and personality expression may take its place. Now, you know, we have to be careful here because there is this phase that sometimes precedes the mystical phase. You know, let's say selfish personality expression will precede the mystical phase. But there is another kind of practical personality expression in the service of the spiritual life sensed, which follows the mystical phase. And I don't know which one he's talking about here, and of course it maybe depends on the ray as well. Sometimes mystics transfer onto the path of occultism via the fifth ray, which that is very interesting. So this is right and good. This is a right and good change and tends correctly to a rounded out development. It is only temporary, for the mystic sleeps beneath the outer activity. Every time DK describes these various phases, he brings in slightly different perspectives, which we have somehow to correlate with the perspective which was presented before. But I think you understand what I'm saying, you know, that people can enter a phase of pretty dominating personality expression before they say, wait a second, there's something higher than myself. I ought to strive for that. Path of aspiration, path of probation. At the same time, when they've begun striving, they also begin to realize, look, there's a more practical way, a more mental way to approach my objectives. Aspiration is good, but I need to know more about this inner life, in which case the seventh petal becomes very important, the petal of knowledge for the mental plane. Okay. So this is right and good and tends correctly to a rounded out development, you know, balancing the mystic and the occultist, I think, in this context. It is only temporary, for the mystic sleeps beneath the outer activity, and all the occult learning that we may go through will one day be blended with a reawakening of the mystical longing, with all of its sense of unity, cohesion, connectedness, and so forth. And the intelligent worldly effort. So it sleeps beneath the outer activity and the intelligent worldly effort, and the solar angel has somehow to try to balance these incarnations and give different astrological substances which will promote the balancing process, and different rays within the personality which will promote the balancing process, and will emerge again to living endeavor when the mind nature has been fully aroused and is controlling. So, you know, you might almost say, well, by petal number 8, we're going to have this re-emergence. By the time there is work in petal 8, this re-emergence can be expected. Yeah, I find this a very beautiful description of what happens. The mystic sleeps beneath the outer activity and the intelligent worldly effort, and will emerge again to living endeavor when the mind nature has been fully aroused and is controlling. Now, just think about what you have to do by the second degree. You have to have spiritual intelligence and an illumined mind. So, and yet this is in a way, a soft line petal, which has to do with great sacrifice, great sensitivity. It's kind of a Scorpio petal in a certain sense, and as I'll describe later, a kind of Leo petal from another angle. When desire for mental satisfaction has been satiated, which quite a bit can be done in the Virgo petal, I would say, and also in the fifth petal, even from the time of the third petal, there's a lot of concrete mental things that can be learned there. But with a knowledge petal of the mental group of petals, there's a lot of acquisition of knowledge. When desire for mental satisfaction has been satiated and the Son of God is ready to rise and enter the Father's house, and the mystical longing, the Neptune, needs to be combined with Uranus in order to do that. The Father's house, of course, what do we mean by that? Well, maybe going closer to the center of the Father aspect within the Egoic Lotus, but eventually we have to rise into the triad and towards the monad. So we're not quite talking about that yet, but there is the attraction of the will operating here. During this period, we find the intelligently creative or powerful man will come to the zenith of his personality life. Now, he seems in a way to have gone back to the fifth petal in describing this before mysticality sets in. Now, so we could bring ourselves to ask, is there mysticism in of some kind in petal number 4, ruled by Cancer, from one way of looking at it? So can we have, could he be describing here some kind of longing for that higher self which just begins to be sensed here in petal number 4, and then putting that aside for strong personality development in petal number 5, followed again by a more intelligent mystical path in petal number 6, and then followed by occult knowledge in petal number 7. You know, the religious impulse is with us all the time. Even in petal number 2, we have, not very developed people still with their own type of religious impulse. So trying to locate these things in the petals is not necessarily easy. I hope I was clear about what I just said. Because in the fifth petal, there's definitely the highly intelligently creative or powerful man coming to the zenith of personality life. That does happen in the fifth petal. Okay, so this does happen in petal number 5. And then a type of correction to this happens when a truer and more knowledgeable type of aspiration occurs with petal number 6, which corrects so many of the personality abuses. The man becomes the aspirant toward the end of petal number 5 and goes through all the pains of being the aspirant and probationer in petal number 6. But I'm beginning to see, I've always had a little question about really what's going on in petal number 4. I know a type of personality integration is, but the higher of the pairs of opposites does become start to come into focus, and man may not know so very much about it, but longs for it. This could be another kind of stage of mystical longing. The centers below the head will all be active and functioning, but the centers below the diaphragm will be subordinated and controlled by those found above. And, even as a, even as a highly developed personality, one has to control the centers below the diaphragm, because they will not be so useful in achieving true personality success of the higher kind, let's say. In other words, so many of those urges that are connected with the lower desire and lower passions can lead a person off the path of personality success, and they come crashing down due to the ill regulation of those centers. So the will is involved here. These lower centers are subject to the conditioning will of the man who is governed at this time by ambition, intellectual expediency, and that form of group work which tends to the expression of personality potency. Well, as he's describing it here, this is doubtless the fifth petal. And in terms of the stages of adaptation, it is stage of adaptation number 4. I'll put that in, STOA 4. Oh, that won't work, STOA 4, which begins with selfishness to the nth degree. And of course, a certain form of religiosity can be very spiritually selfish, that which preceded this stage of personality integration. Remember, we are told that there are 3, 7, or even 11 lives where the man can live as the dominant and selfish personality. So is this preceded by a kind of longing for something higher? And is that longing for something higher somehow fulfilled by being able to really express the personality as a colossal entity? And then does one get sick of that towards the end of petal number 5 and seek for something still higher, though in a more intelligent manner, and become the true aspirant with factors of unselfishness entering in? Because some of the earlier mystical religious longing is just for oneself, that one will be saved. I will be saved, you will not be saved. It is very selfish. But later, when one becomes the true aspirant, one cannot have that kind of attitude. Okay. So, continuing here, it's difficult to know whether in this paragraph we're simply talking about the integrated personality. It's also possible to be a highly integrated personality after the mystical phase has occurred, as well as before. And some of the things said in the earlier part of the paragraph make one think that it is the integrated personality who is serving the plan that is indicated. But toward the later part of the paragraph, we have here governed by ambition, intellectual expediency, and that form of group work which tends to the expression of his personality potential, which is really a fifth petal type of expression rather than within the sacrifice petals. The ajna center is vivid and potent. Of course, maybe not the very highest potentials of the ajna center are there because it can lead all the way into the spiritual triad. But anyway, vivid and potent. The throat center is intensely active because the personality and the throat center correlate, just like the soul and the heart, and the monad and the head. And the heart center is rapidly awakening. And if we have an awakening heart center, it could precede the first initiation where the heart center is emphasized. It is said also that the sacral center is the object of the rod of initiation in the first degree, but there is definitely a very strong heart center stimulation. Then we come to G, which is, how does it describe, a period wherein the highest head center is brought into radiant activity. I think there are certain skips being made here. This occurs as the result of the uprising in a fresh and more potent manner of the mystical instinct, plus this time an intelligent approach to reality, and the result is twofold. So if it's brought into radiant activity, are we dealing here with one who has become an initiate? Let us see. So the result is twofold. The soul begins to pour its energy into the etheric or vital centers via the head center. And 2, the point at the heart of each center comes into its first real activity. It becomes radiant, brilliant, magnetic, and forceful, so that it dims the light of all that lies around. We'll go a little bit further. All the centers in the body are then swept into ordered activity by the forces of love and will, the heart and the head. Then takes place the final transference of all bodily and psychic energies into the head center through the awakening at the center at the base of the spine. And, Shall we say that this occurs around the period of the, well, certainly following the third initiation, perhaps the period of the fourth, and really, if you think about it, even the fifth initiation could be involved, though we will see by that time that the Egoic Lotus is no longer in existence. Then the great polar opposites, as symbolized and expressed by the head center, the organ of spiritual energy, and the center at the base of the spine, the organ of the material forces, the organ of will, and the organ of purpose. The head center, purpose, the base of the spine, will, are fused and blended, and from that time on, the man is controlled only from above by the soul. So this is certainly, let us say, beyond the third initiation, certainly then and even farther. Okay. And even farther. He's not being entirely specific here, but he has shown in all of these points, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way from the dormant, sluggish centers below the diaphragm, with the moving with a slow and inert rhythm, to the awakening of the centers below the diaphragm and the awakening of the solar plexus center, though the centers above are relatively dull in point B. And then transference begins to be made. The solar plexus center is becoming the principal organ of transference, and now the transference is continued with the solar plexus helping the transference of the sacral to the throat and also of itself to the heart. Probably not from the base of the spine to the crown, that comes later. At a period wherein the throat and heart centers are brought into activity. Let's see. The man is creatively intelligent. So this is interesting. He is creatively intelligent. So he's in petal 5 and 6. And he is in the group number 6, human group number 6. The mystical life is attracting him, and he is creatively intelligent. So this is, there's a few things that really have to be worked out here. A second period of transference ensues. The ajna center is now stimulated, and the man becomes an integrated personality. But the mystic has preceded this, and if he is already intelligent along some line or other, then intelligence has preceded the mystic path. So let's put that down. According to this presentation, intelligence precedes the mystic path, then comes that mystical path, and then a more powerful integration of the personality. Well, in section number F here, the emphasis seems to be placed upon, well, the selfish, ambitious integration of the personality. And it's hard to think of that as following the mystical path. In other words, let me put this down here as best I can. In one way, the mystical path precedes the selfish integration of the personality, but we know that there is a path of mysticism which definitely follows the stage of selfish or well, how does he call it? Expression of personality potency. So we have a little bit, it's not exactly a contradiction, but it's something to be looked into. Mysticism before the integration of the personality, and a kind of mysticism after the expression of the personality. The later type of mysticism is more informed and knowledgeable. And then and it precedes learning. Let's see, how do I do this? Precedes, no, precedes, learning on the path of occultism. So we seem to have, if I can put it this way, mysticism, personality expression, mysticism, path of occultism. At least that's the way it seems to me at the present moment. And a period when the highest head center is brought into radiant activity. How far does this go? The very center, the center is dimming the light of all that is around. The first aspect is dominant. So it seems we certainly have taken the third initiation here. And if we really want to talk about the uprushing of the base of the spine to the top of the head, we should look at the fifth degree. The focus of the fifth initiation is the base of the spine. It should be remembered. The chakric focus of the fifth initiation is the base spine center, base of the spine center, and the heart for the fourth initiation. There are consequently 2 points to be borne in mind as we study the mystic and his difficulties. First of all, sometimes you see the mystic is considered to be the highly intelligent person. So why must such a mystic have a period which is followed by intelligent personality expression? It seems to me there are different mystic phases, and it seems to me there's kind of an alternation between this soft line and hard line approach. So there are consequently 2 points to be borne in mind as we study the mystic and his difficulties, because DK is going into the discussion of the diseases of the mystics, and by that he means the highly intelligent aspirant. So you see where the issue is, the sort of unintelligent mystic followed by a stage of really intelligent personality cohesion and expression, and then the intelligent mystical phase followed by studies and activities on the path of occultism. Okay, first of all, the period of awakening and subsequent utilization of the centers. So awakening, so these are the, how does it go? Awakening, which is development, utilization, and transference. He's put now in the verb to awaken, and before he simply said develop, use, and transfer. Okay, so we have the awakening, development, utilization, and transference. First of all, the period of awakening and subsequent utilization of the centers, and secondly, the period of transference of energy from the solar plexus to the heart, and then from all the 4 centers up the spine to the throat center, prior to the focusing in of the energy of the centers in the ajna center between the eyebrows. So we're moving towards the stage of integration using the ajna center. Moving towards the stage of integration ending in the ajna center, at least for this phase. This center is the controlling one in the personality life, and from it goes all personality direction and guidance to the 5 lower centers which it synthesizes. And by the 5 lower centers, apparently, the heart center has to be included. Interesting. So there are different stages of unfoldment of the heart center. The heart center has to be included with its different stages of unfoldment. Each of these stages brings with it its own difficulties and problems, and we shall, however, concern ourselves with these problems only as they affect present opportunity or hinder the man who finds himself upon the path and is therefore taking his own evolution in hand, and that is the definition of one who finds himself upon the path. Let us say that from the time of the later 5th petal and working into the 6th, one is definitely on a path. After this, you see, this is another way of looking at it. There is a mysticism in which the individual is not on the path, and a mysticism following the 5th petal in which he is on the path. And that is something to be considered. You know, mystical longing does not necessarily mean that one is taking one's own evolution in hand, and in order to be on the path, one must be taking one's own evolution in hand. Then he stands midway between the pairs of opposites, soul and personality, and this means, as far as our particular interest at this time is concerned, that we shall find 3 stages in the mystical work. Okay, good. He is differentiating them, and that will probably tell us in which of the petals the man may be active and in which stage he may find himself, each of which will mark a definite point of crisis with its attendant tests and trials. Okay, we're getting near to the, we can go on just a bit more. So the stage wherein transference is being made of all the lower energies into the solar plexus, preparatory to carrying them to the throat and heart centers above the diaphragm. So this is one stage, and it is not yet the truly intelligent stage. We do not have the truly intelligent mystic. This stage covers not only the process of transference, but also that of focusing the forces in the higher centers. So the mystic is only becoming intelligent here, not fully so. It's interesting, the mystical work goes quite high, and it also starts at a phase, apparently, before the expression of the dominant intelligent personality. So, period. The later stage of the path of probation and early stage of the path of discipleship. The keynote is discipline. The objective is idealism plus personality effort, purification, and control. All right, now I think I wish to maybe take back what I've said here. Well, he certainly is becoming increasingly intelligent as there is focus within the throat and the heart center, but all this relates to the mystic on the path, and not just to a person who has longings for the higher self and is not ready really to do anything about it. So the later stages of the path of probation, and what that will mean is work in petal 6. And the early stages of the path of discipleship, we can say some work in petal 7, but not yet initiation. Discipline is the keynote, and that fits with Virgo and petal 6, and petal 6. And also, of course, we can go to the various groups where we have the aspirant idealism plus personality effort, purification and control, and let's just say lots of ray 6 on this path of mysticism. On this path of mysticism, and the idea is the path is emphasized. Okay, the stage wherein transference is made to the action center and the personality life becomes integrated and powerful. So this is the post-personality integrated, this is the post-mystical personality integration. And this is more than selfish integration. More than selfish integration. And really more than even what was expressed up here, that the man is, what does it say here? That he is, tends to the expression of personality potency. He's governed by ambition, intellectual expediency. No, if this is the way he is entirely, then he is not at this higher stage. So we can see that DK shifts back and forth between stages as he's describing this. If this is really discipleship and up until the third initiation, then the person is already an initiate of the first degree. So, of the first degree. The keynote is expression of the souls with the medium of the personality, and the objective, the understanding of the plan and consequent cooperation with it. So we are not here dealing with, we are definitely working in the sacrifice petals at this time. We are working in them. Working in the sacrifice petals, and we are not simply expressing ourselves as a dominating, integrated personality of the lower type. All right, so first we have, let's review, transferences made from the lower energies into the solar plexus, and they will be carried to the throat and the heart. And then transference is being made into the ajna center and the personality life. In other words, all the 5 centers up the spine are being transferred into the ajna center, or are being activated along with it. And it goes all the way to the 3rd initiation. Then comes the 3rd and final stage, with which we need not concern ourselves, wherein there's a complete blending of the bodily forces focused through the ajna center with the soul forces. Bodily forces focused through the ajna centers, so it is the receptive center, okay, with the soul forces focused through the head center. So there is a marriage in the heavens, in a sense, between the female ajna center and the male head center. It is at this time that there comes the final evocation of the personality will, purified and consecrated, which has been sleeping, coiled like the serpent of wisdom at the base of the spine. So he's telling us that Kundalini is personality will. And that's always different perspectives on these various energy factors within our system. And this surges upward upon an impulse of devotion, aspiration, enlightened will. Interesting. What causes it to surge upward? Devotion, aspiration, those things are not out of the question. They are part of the Kundalini upward rising. So we cannot be rid of devotion and aspiration. Indeed not. And then fuses itself in the head with the spiritual will, which is coming through the head and acting as purpose. This is the final raising by an act of discriminating determination of the Kundalini fire, and this raising takes place in 3 stages or impulses. All right, he's giving us some amazing material here, definitely. Let's see, we are just about to the end, so we probably should take it, even though it will need a little review. The stage wherein the lower energies are carried to the solar plexus center, the stage wherein these energies pouring through to the heart are blended with it and carried to the throat, so the throat has indeed a more elevated position than the heart in ways which we have yet to understand, and the stage wherein all the 5 lower forms of energy are focused within the ajna center. So this earlier rising to the ajna is not as complete as this later rising. Let's see if I can. The earlier rising to the ajna center is not as complete as the rising which is being here considered. See, we discussed that earlier rising, did we not? Yes, the stage when transference is made into the ajna center and the personality life becomes integrated and powerful. So there are various centers that are coordinated by the ajna center, but it's not the same as the full power of the Kundalini surging upward and being centralized in the ajna center, which then transfers it to the highest head center. There's some amazing stuff here. Now, as I say, there is a way to be the 3rd degree initiate. The 3rd degree initiate will have all 9 petals open and will have the synthesis petals reasonably unfolded, but not as unfolded as just before the 4th initiation, when they burst open, so to speak, and reveal the jewel. So we are still within the province of the Egoic Lotus, and we have not entered the stage where the Egoic Lotus is destroyed. So when we come back here to this idea of the base of the spine, then takes place the final transference of all bodily and psychic energies into the head center through the awakening of the base of the spine. This will take a period. This will require a period from the third degree unto the fifth degree, unto the fifth degree. All right, degree. And is not taking place overnight. Then the great polar opposites, as symbolized and expressed by the head center and the organ at the center of the base of the spine, are fused and blended, and from this time man is controlled from above by the soul. So even at the third degree, the what's called the ancient domination of the personality ends. And then I would say that from the third degree through the fourth and even to the fifth, when the man is using the Maya Virupa, there is an increasing rising of that which is at the base of the spine into the highest head center. Certainly it is even more so at the fourth degree than at the third degree. And since the center at the base of the spine is the major center for the fifth initiation, we see that it has to come into connection with the head center. As a matter of fact, let's go to the rays and initiations, and we'll go to page 340, where we'll have the necessary picture. We see that initiation 4, the energy at the base of the spine, is involved, and that only later at the seventh initiation is the head center involved. But that has to be the head center of a Maya Virupa, doesn't it? And the great decision has to be the throat center of a Maya Virupa. The monadic plane is involved, the Egoic plane is involved, so perhaps this the transference of the base of the spine into the head center is not really complete until the fifth degree, and then these other centers are being stimulated probably from triadal and monadic sources. It's always good to study this particular chart on page 340 of the rays and the initiations along with the petals. Okay, so we have now dealt with energy transferences, and this has taken us all the way to page 529 from 520, I believe, and we get the idea of different ways and phases of looking at the rising of these fires. I mean, I suppose what we really should do is go over it again, but I trust maybe that enough has been said to give us the sense of the different phases through which a person will pass. The undeveloped man, the average man through the solar plexus, the world aspirants, in which the throat center is involved, and that's so interesting because the world aspirants have to have something of an intelligent personality. The world disciples, the heart center comes into it, and then with the world advanced disciples and world initiates, the head centers come in. So that's a very important five-fold listing. Important five-fold listing, yes. Okay, and now it goes on, and I think we are at the end. Yes, we are at the end of our work here. So I would like to bring this all into some kind of grand synthesis, but it's not really possible. We have phases here of the first, second, and third, and how the stages, how the centers are brought into activity. Well, it just takes a review of this page, of these pages, along with what I have said here. This sevenfold picturing of the centers is very, very important, from the inert phase to the brighter centers in stage B, to the dominance of the solar plexus in stage C, to a period where the throat center and the heart are being activated, and then the heart and throat are actually brought into activity in stage E, and the ajna center is involved in stage F, and finally, I believe, the head center in stage G. So it keeps on saying the same thing in various ways, and always with a little bit of a different perspective. What's important to realize is that we are rising through the petals, we are rising through the 10 human groups, we are rising through the 8 stages of adaptation. We are not yet quite, in this process, the master of the wisdom, but we are certainly the higher initiate. So it really is taking us into stage 8 of the higher initiate, stages of adaptation, and taking us into stage 9 and a little bit of stage 10, or group 9, group 10, in the group of human souls, the tenfold group of human souls. So this is going to be the end of Egoic Lotus webinar commentaries, and it's program number 8, and it has taken us from EP2, page, oh, well, it'd be nice to remember that, 520 to 529. Okay, 520 to 529, and now we will begin Egoic Lotus webinar commentaries, program 9, and we will see what we will undertake. So far, we have studied the 10 groups, we have studied the 8 stages of adaptation, and we've studied various methods of energy transference and where these energy transferences really occur. We can go more into detail about where they occur. Certainly the higher ones that we're talking about involving the head center are occurring just before the egoic lotus is destroyed, from the 3rd degree to the point of the 4th degree and even beyond. Okay, I hope that all of that was somewhat useful to you. I would have liked to make a better synthesis of it than I've been able to do, but the details will fall into place as we go on. So, we'll see you then for program number 9.